there, my name is Chase Sr. Welcome into the show. You're watching Philadelphia Eagles now. Thank you so much for supporting the program. And coming up, the Philadelphia Eagles have already made a deadline trade in making a move for Jets cornerback Michael Carter, a really good player from the slot spot. But on today's show, trade rumors continue to hum around this football team. We're going to get to some of that trade buzz and some Eagles news. But first, it might be the bye week for the Birds, but our coverage and our shows do not stop. This is why you have to join the movement and subscribe today. I truly believe that what we do here on the channel is very special. If you agree with me, if you want Eagles coverage nonstop every single day, year-round, lock us in, hit that sub button, and let's get to 135,000 subscribers. So as the NFL trade deadline approaches, the Eagles are expected to be one of the most active teams across the NFL. And prior to the trade for Michael Carter, Howie Roseman already busy since training camp. He traded for John Mechie. He traded for Jacorian Bennett. He traded for Fred Johnson. He made the move for Michael Carter. Howie Roseman never sleeps in trying to improve his football team. And so the Eagles addressed one need at the corner spot with Carter. But will the Eagles also make a move for a pass rusher? Two popular names mentioned here. And they both play for the Miami Dolphins, who only have 2 wins this year and could sell going into the deadline. That's defensive end Bradley Chubb and defensive end Jaelan Phillips. Different players, and we'll talk about both individually. But here's what ESPN had to say about Chubb and Phillips and the possibilities of them getting dealt. Jan Graziano, I believe one of them will get traded, but which one I cannot say. I still think the Dolphins want to put a representative product on the field this season. They started 2-6 last year, recovered to win 6 of their next 8 games. So they know it's possible to get back to respectability, even if it doesn't result in a playoff spot. That said, with Tyreek Hill out for the year, the vibes around the team feeling different than they did a year ago, it's entirely possible they'll deal players and look to the future. They'll have 4 days following Thursday night's game against Baltimore to ponder offers ahead of Tuesday's deadline. And there's no shortage of teams looking for pass rushing help. Assuming they lose Thursday and drop to 2-7, and assuming offers for Phillips and Chubb are reflective of teams' level of desperation, it's going to be tempting for Miami to consider dealing players they don't imagine being a part of their future. And both of these players had their futures uncertain with Miami. Now, obviously, Thursday's game will really be telling, and it's definitely not a great matchup, right? Baltimore against Miami in the win column. Ravens don't have many wins, but Lamar Jackson is going to come back. I will say, Ravens coming off a season-saving win over the Chicago Bears, in which Snoop Huntley outplayed Caleb Williams. But the Dolphins are the Dolphins, and they beat the Jets. They beat a bad Falcons team. I don't think that Miami is going to be able to compete in this game against Baltimore. As Baltimore, I think you can make the argument still, even though they're not in first place, is the top team in the AFC North. And so I expect Miami to lose this game on Thursday. And I expect one or both of these players to potentially get moved. And let's begin here with Bradley Chubb. Why Bradley Chubb makes sense. He knows the scheme. He's played under Vic Fangio twice, with Denver and with Miami. He has no guaranteed money left on his deal. So it's not like the Eagles have to inherit a monster contract. And I don't think he's going to cost too much as far as the Eagles trading for him. And as we know, the Eagles brought Brandon Graham out of retirement. They signed Zadarius Smith before bringing back BG. They really value vets, especially along the defensive line. You think about what they did in 2022. They signed Ndamukong Suh. They made the move for Linval Joseph. And Bradley Chubb this year is having a pretty solid season. He already has 4 sacks. He has a long history of being able to get after the quarterback, 7 quarterback hits as well, 5 TFLs, and a pass rush grade, according to Pro Football Focus, of 56.8. You put him on this Eagles defensive line, I think that he'll have opportunities to hunt down the quarterback. And why Jaelan Phillips makes sense, these two players are different. You have Chubb, who's older, Phillips, who's younger. Different stages of their careers, different players. Phillips is more of an athletic freak, whereas Chubb is more of that physical, stout, wider body at defensive end. Phillips, longer and leaner, taller too, 6'5", 263, freak athlete, first-round pedigree. Howie Roseman loves players who were taken early in the draft because he believes in his coaching staff and the Eagles player development program to maximize these types of players. Phillips, when healthy, has had great production. First 3 years in the NFL, 8.5 sacks, 7 sacks, 6.5 sacks. His season last year cut short due to a torn Achilles, and that's led to him being a little bit slow to start the 2025 season, but he's starting to find a groove. I thought 2 weeks ago he looked the best that he's looked since the pre-injury when the Dolphins played the Cleveland Browns. 2 sacks, 6 quarterback hits this year, 2 TFLs. Look at that pass rush grade, an 80.4. Another Miami Dolphin who could make sense if the Dolphins decide to have a fire sale is safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. Minkah Fitzpatrick is still one of the top safeties in the NFL. He's also under contract through the 2026 season. So the Eagles traded for Michael Carter knowing he's under contract through 2027. If they trade for Fitzpatrick, he's under contract this year and next. But here's the problem with Fitzpatrick. He's a little bit pricey. 2026, $18.84 million cap hit and a $15.6 million base salary. 28 years old, you know the resume. A 3-time first-team All-Pro, fantastic player with the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was sent to Miami in that Jaelan Ramsey trade. Fitzpatrick this year still continues to be one of the top safeties in the National Football League. Overall PFF grade of 73.4. That ranks 10th among 88 safeties. A run defense grade of 74.9. That's 30th. His coverage grade, 70. That is 12th. He has 3 pass breakups from that safety spot. He's always been a big-time playmaker back there. That ranks 3rd, and that comes on 259 coverage snaps. Now, I know a lot of you will say, well, Chase, what about Drew Makuba? You don't like him? I like Drew Makuba, but I expected him to be better earlier because of all the experience he had in college at Clemson and at Texas. It's not to say that he's not going to become a good player. I think at some point he will, and we've seen glimpses of it, but he's had some really bad misses and some really bad coverage breakdowns this year, which have really hurt the Eagles. Overall PFF grade of 52.6. That is 72nd among 88 safeties. Now, against the run, he can read and diagnose. He can sniff plays out. He can shoot the gap. 76.3 grade there. That's 21st. But in coverage, that's where he's had lapses, whether he's in the wrong place at the wrong time, whether it's him missing a play like he did against Tampa Bay and giving up an explosive, whether it's him missing a tackle like he did against the Giants, or just getting lost. I mean, his coverage grade is 43.3. It's 79th in the NFL. 1 PBU, that's 33rd, and obviously he's gotten a lot of time there because he's won that job over Sidney Brown, as I predicted that he would prior to the year. 303 coverage snaps for the rookie. If the Eagles don't feel confident in Makuba this year, maybe they can make a trade for a safety, but I think they'll ride it out with Makuba. Before we continue to push forward on today's show, we've reached 3 million people here on YouTube the last month. I've reached 12 million people the last month on my Instagram page. So give me a follow there at Chase_Senior, and so much content on my X page as well at Chase_Senior. Now, we're going to get to some more trade buzz for the Eagles coming up. We'll talk Trey Hendrickson. We'll talk Myles Garrett. We have an injury update on Saquon Barkley. But this episode of Philadelphia Eagles Now is brought to you by PrizePicks. The hard-hitting football action is even better with PrizePicks. The weather might be changing, but the feeling of being right, it never gets old. So keep the season rolling on PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. This is the #1 fantasy sports app in North America. Pick, predict, play. Easy to play. Get your picks in less than 60 seconds, and you can win some big-time money. PrizePicks is the only app that offers stacks, meaning you can pick the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup. You want to pick more on Jalen Hurts' pass yards, rush yards, and touchdowns? Now you can pick all of them in the same lineup, only on PrizePicks. You can also follow other PrizePicks players directly on the app and copy their lineups in one click. Whether it's a friend, a celebrity partner, or just somebody whose picks you like, hit the follow button and check out every lineup they create in the new feed tab on PrizePicks. A 3-pick power play for some Thursday night football. Derrick Henry more on 88.5 rushing yards and the half rushing or receiving touchdown. And then Jalen Waddle more on the 62.5 receiving yards. So download the PrizePicks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So if the Eagles want to make a move for a pass rusher of the star variety, Trey Hendrickson would fit that type of billing. And the Bengals 2 games ago came through with that crazy win over the Pittsburgh Steelers on Thursday night as Joe Flacco had a great duel session with Aaron Rodgers. And you're thinking, okay, the Bengals are back in it in the AFC North. What happens in week 8? When they had a mini bye, they lose against the New York Jets. Not only did they lose, they lost a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter and multiple double-digit leads against the worst team in football in the Jets, who picked up their first win. The Bengals somehow lose 39-38. And so if the Bengals continue to stack up L's, Joe Burrow ain't coming back until December. Trey Hendrickson is on the expiring year of his contract. Does he get moved? That's really the big question because he's the biggest trade target out there. Here's what ESPN's Jeremy Fowler said about Hendrickson. Up to this point, the Bengals have rebuffed trade inquiries, and sources have maintained that Cincinnati has no plans to trade Hendrickson right now. The Cowboys and 49ers are among the interested teams, though. San Francisco made a move for a pass rusher on Tuesday night. The question becomes, will the Bengals' win-loss record change things? A loss to Chicago on Sunday would drop Cincinnati to 3-6. The AFC North should remain wide open for a while. An 8-9 or an 8-9, 9-8 record might be good enough to win that division this year. So perhaps the Bengals cling to that hope and retain their premier edge rusher, but teams will most likely keep trying to pry Hendrickson away, especially after Sunday's upset loss to the Jets. Complicating matters is a hip injury that has compromised Hendrickson's past 2 weeks on the field, though that injury is not considered serious, and Hendrickson should be full go for the stretch run, be it for Cincinnati or somebody else. The Colts make a ton of sense as a contending team that could be the proverbial one player away. It would also represent a reunion between Hendrickson and former Bengals DC Lou Anarumo, now running the defense in Indy. And I agree that the Colts would make a lot of sense. But I also think that the Eagles would make a lot of sense. Now, obviously with Hendrickson, it comes down to what the Eagles would be willing to give up. They have those 3 third-round picks if you count the compensatory selection for Milton Williams signing with the Patriots. The other one is from the Jets. The other one is their own. And so can you get it done with a second and a third? Obviously, that's a steep price to pay. But if you think that you can win a Super Bowl and Hendrickson is the player to put you over the top, we know that Howie's always willing to be aggressive. Hendrickson this year, once again, really, really good despite that nagging hip injury. He has had more sacks than anybody in 2023 and 2024 combined, 17.5 sacks in each of those years. And so far this year, 4 sacks, 23 pressures, 8 quarterback hits, and a pass rush grade of 90. Of course, you have to also factor in, coming out of the bye, Eagles will get back Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham, some reinforcements coming at edge. Then there's this one, which I think is fascinating. Is Myles Garrett available for a trade? A lot of you saw this clip, and I put it up on my social media pages of that sideline spat that he had. He had 5 sacks against the New England Patriots on Sunday. But once again, it didn't matter because the Browns lost. They lost big. Their offense is a joke. They're one of the worst teams in football. And Myles Garrett continues to play elite ball for a team that doesn't play meaningful football. That game that he had against New England, one of the best that you'll ever see. 5 sacks in a single game. He added 7 pressures on top of that, 2 hurries, and 5 quarterback hits. Now, I bring up Myles Garrett's name because the Eagles were tied to Garrett a lot this offseason. I was at the NFL Combine when these rumors were hot. I was talking with a lot of people. NFL insiders were talking to a lot of people. And the Eagles were looked at as one of the teams that was looking at Myles Garrett seriously as a player to acquire. And obviously this is before the Browns gave him that record-breaking contract extension at the time. Howie Roseman made an offer for Micah Parsons. He could make another big offer for Myles Garrett. Because Jeremy Fowler said this about Garrett. The thing is, I dug into the contract this week, and I don't think it's out of the question that the Browns could trade Garrett even this week if he really wanted out, because during Sunday's game, it looked as though he was fed up. The extension added $7 million to his 2025 compensation, $6 million to his 2026 compensation. It also guaranteed him about $30.5 million for 2027. That's a lot of dead money, but it's not even close to the record. The Broncos took on about $80 million when they cut Russell Wilson last year, and they made the playoffs last year and look poised to do so again. The Buccaneers are still carrying Tom Brady dead money, and they win their division every season. We see teams do this more and more as the salary cap continues to rise significantly each year. If somebody came offering the Browns, say 2 first-round picks and Garrett, who has a no-trade clause and could therefore veto a deal, and he really wanted out, it would probably be worth considering. I mean, that would be a fascinating trade for the Eagles, and that would immediately make Philadelphia, in my opinion, Super Bowl favorites. How did they take down Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, who right now look like arguably the best team in football, with their pass rush? You add Myles Garrett to the mix with Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham, look out. Now, Adam Schefter, who works for ESPN, just like Jeremy Fowler does, did report from an NFL source that there's no chance Myles Garrett gets moved, but with what Fowler said, let's keep tabs on that. And let's also get to this. We have a Saquon Barkley injury update as the Eagles are going into their bye week. He had the best game of his season going up against his former team in the New York Giants in Week 8 as he ran for $150. But on his last carry, another splash play, we saw him come up lame with a groin injury. That is something that obviously can linger for a little while. Saquon said after the game, "I'm fine. We have a bye week. I'll be able to rest up." But obviously to a player like this who's terrific, who's starting to come on and look better behind this Eagles offensive line, which is playing better, it's always worthy of raising a red flag when a running back goes down with a groin. But Jeremy Fowler reports that things seem to be going in a good direction. Eagles running back Saquon Barkley is trending positively, coming off a minor groin injury. The feeling right now is that he should be in a good spot after the bye week. That's fantastic news, because what Saquon did against the Giants, I think, can unleash another element of this Eagles offense. The last 2 games, the passing game has been there. You get the running game involved as well, and it opens up so many doors. 14 carries, 150 yards, 10.7 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. And to me, this has never been a Saquon Barkley issue this year. It's not the Madden curse. It's not him being washed. It's not him being tired after leading the NFL in touches last year. He's looked great to me. We saw it against the Giants. We've seen it at moments this year. It's been an Eagles offensive line problem. His yards before contact has gone down a full 2 yards from 2024 to this year, going into that Giants game. What did we see against New York? Led by a guy in Brett Toth, who played great at the center spot. He had a lot of real estate before he was contacted. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button here for daily and year-round coverage of the Birds. EAGLES. Let's go.